Just as Donald Trump raises the ante with a Saturday deadline he's imposed for Hamas to hand over all remaining Israeli hostages, just as he keeps up the pressure on Egypt and Jordan to take in Palestinians who would be permanently shipped out of the Gaza Strip under Trump's idea. The U.S. president welcoming the King of Jordan, Abdullah, to the White House at this hour. Donald Trump's ultimatum digested by Israel's cabinet earlier, which convened behind closed doors to discuss whether to stick with the current phase one of the ceasefire deal with Hamas. Delano D'Souza has more.
A fresh warning from the U.S. president that puts an already fragile ceasefire in Gaza at risk. Donald Trump says he wants all hostages held by Hamas released on Saturday. Trump's latest statement flies in the face of the current truce agreed to between Israel and Hamas.
If all of the hostages aren't returned by Saturday at 12 o'clock, I think it's an appropriate time. I would say cancel it and all bets are off and let hell break out. I'd say they ought to be returned by 12 o'clock on Saturday, and if they're not returned, all of them, not in drips and drabs, not 2 and 1 and 3 and 4 and 2.
The latest statement from the U.S. president comes a week after he floated the idea of the United States taking over the Gaza Strip. While that proposal, deemed outlandish, has been rejected by Arab states, Trump appears to be digging in his heels and now suggests Palestinians currently living in Gaza won't have the right to return once the enclave is rebuilt.
The Palestinians have the right to return?
No, they wouldn't, because they're going to have much better housing, much better. In other words, I'm talking about building a permanent place for them, because if they have to return now, it'll be years before you could ever. It's not habitable. It will be years before it could happen. I'm talking about starting to build, and I think I could make a deal with Jordan. I think I could make a deal with Egypt.
Hamas says the latest threat from Donald Trump complicates the Gaza truce in place. On Monday, the militant group threatened to delay the next release of hostages slated for the weekend. It came after Israel sent back a low-level delegation from talks in Doha aimed at expanding the ceasefire. UN officials are calling on all sides to stick to the deal in place as fears mount the conflict in the enclave could reignite once again.
For more, let's cross to Washington and correspondent Fraser Jackson. Fraser, there's while the King of Jordan is at the White House behind you, the Israeli Prime Minister, who seems to be picking up the ball and running with it, saying if Hamas does not return hostages by Saturday noon, the ceasefire will end and the military will return to intensive fighting. That's on top of reports by the Associated Press of troop movement on the part of the Israelis in and around Gaza. The Israelis following Donald Trump and taking him at his word, it seems.
Yeah, I think that press conference that we saw last week from Donald Trump when Netanyahu was here visiting the White House really said it all. The look on Netanyahu's face, he had a slight smirk, and it was very clear to see that this is the kind of administration that has been wanting to deal with for the last year and a half. And that is evidenced by some of the comments he made on Monday, where he said that the meeting with Donald Trump was one of the most productive and revealing that he's had with any U.S. president. So very clear that Netanyahu here is singing from Donald Trump's hymn sheet, the kind of move that we've seen from Donald Trump of wanting to redevelop the Gaza Strip and turn it into the Riviera of the Middle East is the kind of thing that Netanyahu has been dreaming of, really. So definitely the kind of president that he wants is back in the Oval Office. However, it is going to make things more difficult for the other members of the other countries in the region, including Jordan and Egypt. Donald Trump obviously here today with the King of Jordan to discuss this matter. Donald Trump has threatened to withhold aid. He said that he would conceivably withhold aid from Jordan should they not take in the Palestinians from the Gaza Strip. But of course, that is a red line for many Arab nations, especially Jordan. They have a very pro-Palestinian segment of their population. Around 2 or so million of the 11 million people in Jordan are either Palestinian or of Palestinian descent. So any movement to take the Palestinians out of Gaza and house them in Jordan would then put the monarchy in Jordan in a very precarious position, and they are very, very aware of that. It could upset the apple cart in their own country and ultimately lead to some kind of coup. That is what the Jordanian authorities are worried about. We're told from sources that the Jordanians wanted this to be a quieter meeting with the president. We're not seeing any press sprays before or after it. There's no press conference after this either. The only thing currently open to the press today at the White House was the arrival that we saw a while ago of the King of Jordan and his departure. So it is a very, very delicate situation as the Jordanians and the Egyptians especially try to navigate this. I'm also told from sources that the Arab League will be having a meeting on the 27th of February where their aim is to create a unified position which will state that there will be no transfer of Palestinians, that the ceasefire talks will continue, the negotiations will continue, and that the two-state solution will be put forward as the only solution. So there's a bit of a game of hardball here between players in the region and the United States who wants to have its own way. But of course, some of those things that Donald Trump wants are red lines for their allies in the region.
And Fraser, what are the reactions, first off, at the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue on Capitol Hill and throughout the United States when Donald Trump ups the ante like he did, saying release all the hostages come Saturday?
Well, I think everybody in the United States wants the hostages to be released. That's not really ever been in question. It's been like that ever since the hostages were taken back in October 2023. But the way that things are being dealt with is a different story. Of course, the Democrats and the Republicans alike both say that Hamas is a terrorist organization, that that they should not be being dealt with. They're in no position to be putting forward demands. But the question as to how this is being done is really being raised. The Republicans, of course, mostly support Donald Trump. There have been some voices that have questioned his way of doing things. I think a lot of people aren't really taking too seriously his calls to redevelop the Middle East. A lot of people see that as a non-starter. But that clearly is not getting through to the White House because Donald Trump has doubled down on that multiple times, as recently as the flight on Air Force One on Sunday. And when we spoke to Donald Trump just as he met the king as he was going in, we asked whether Hamas would give in to Donald Trump's demands, and he said yes, he thinks they will.
Fraser Jackson reporting live there from the White House. Many thanks for that update. For more, let's go to Rome and Jordanian geopolitics analyst Amer Al Sabaileh. Thank you for being with us here on France 24.
Thanks to you. My pleasure.
First off, your thoughts on what room to maneuver the King of Jordan has right now, sitting in the White House?
Well, this is a long waiting moment, and I think this is not an easy mission for the king. I think it's the first time we face such situation, going to the White House with a clear idea that the American president has. He already expressed what he has in mind. So I think the tough mission today is to rationalize his vision and to offer something. And I think for Jordan, it's a bit different from any other country. We are military allies. There's a political ties, very strong political ties. So I think Jordan can use now all its strategic cards when talking to President Trump. Definitely, it's hard to say no to the president at this moment, but I think Jordan can still try to explain its concerns, fears, from the implications that such step might generate in Jordan. And then on the other side, it can show how Jordan, as a trusted ally to the U.S., can play a major role also in the region, together with the Americans, whether in Syria, in Iraq, or whether from an economic point of view when it comes to regional cooperation and big projects in the region. So I guess this is a chance also to get out and talk to the Americans, not just with the problems of Gaza, but the problems of the region as a package. And here I think the Jordanian role might matter, and the vision of Jordan might be listened to in a very different way.
Okay, your point is well taken. If you look back to when Trump was first in office, during his first term, he would make bold statements, and then he would temper them according to whoever was in the room with him. Is that still the case, though, today? Has Donald Trump changed, perhaps?
Well, many things has changed. Even the Middle East has changed. We cannot compare the Middle East at that time to the Middle East after the 7th of October. This is for sure. The second, that we are dealing with a president who thinks that he has just 4 years left. He's has been in the office for a few weeks. He looks very strong. He wants to look decisive. He wants to impose his vision. He wants to be...
Because you heard, sorry to interrupt, you heard our correspondent say that some analysts and some players don't take too seriously his claim that he can redevelop the Gaza Strip. Do you take him seriously when he makes big statements like this?
I take him seriously at this moment because of the timing. It's his first days in office, but I know that practically speaking, when it comes to solution, it's very complicated. There's a lot of complications ahead. It's not easy to solve. It's not easy to make it that easy as a solution. And that's why I said we need to rationalize his vision. Like at this moment, we know that he wants to show that he is the one who can bring solution, who can impose solutions on everybody. So I think by time he will realize that sometimes all what was said is really difficult to be done. So I think the Jordanian role here is exactly this, is to show the president the difficulties ally in this project and the implications that a country, an ally, trusted ally like Jordan has when it comes to this vision. So I guess I won't say I don't take him seriously. I would take him seriously, but at the same time, I would like as well to advocate my case as Jordanian and show the risk that such vision will generate in Jordan.
What would be the consequences domestically for Jordan if it took in more Palestinians?
Well, definitely there will be three implications: security implication, economics implications, and political implications. There is a clear impact of exporting this Palestinian case to others like Jordan, and its implications definitely will make a kind of change in the structure of the society.
Would it threaten the political structure of Jordan? Would it threaten the country, how it stands politically now with its king?
Definitely. It will weaken the regime, and it will show that the Jordanians, the East Bankers, they will not be that happy of having more demographic increase. And at the same time, we know that this is long term will change the political identity of the country itself, having more Palestinians, more and more Palestinians, and at the same time, even economically, Jordan cannot afford such steps. So from all levels, I don't think that it's that easy, and it will never let Jordan pass this phase without really having these implications inside the country.
Prime Minister Netanyahu putting out a video statement in the last minutes saying that the ceasefire in Gaza would end if Hamas did not return hostages on Saturday. He doesn't say all hostages, but he says hostages by Saturday noon. Quote, the military will return to intense fighting until Hamas is finally defeated. Your reaction?
Well, definitely it was from day one, the stages or the phases on which the agreement was built. It showed that it is really fragile and weak on the second phase. Second, I think what he's saying is really backed up by the president, the American president, who said that by Saturday at 12, if all hostages were not released, then things will change. It means that Netanyahu today, after his meeting with Trump, is preparing himself for phase 2 of escalation, that it might start in Gaza, but I don't think that it will be limited to Gaza. I think the whole region, all the agreements from Lebanon to Gaza were really weak, and we might witness a new wave of escalation.
And we have Jordan's king speaking now to reporters, asked about taking in Palestinians, saying we have to keep in mind how we do make this work. That is in everyone's best interest, saying he'll take in 2,000 children who are ill, trying to not upset his host there as he stands in the White House addressing reporters. Amer Al Sabaileh, I want to thank you for being with us from Rome.
Thanks to you.
Stay with us. There's much more to come here on France 24. More news plus the day's business and in sports.